Upgrades.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a super-sized JVS movie review of the latest film from visionary director Gareth Edwards, the creator, starring David Jason Washington. Here is the team to talk about this most talked about film so far of the fall. It's my guy, Samuel Supercell. SEL 0230. I never get that right. I swear I never get
SEL
that right.
0230.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Also, Jorge with Jedi Mike. And I'm not going to say Jedi Mike ever again. It's just going to be Mike. But Jedi Mike, as we're here to talk about this visually amazing sci-fi film that a lot of people have already talked about it and said this is the new standard for sci-fi. So, gentlemen, first, how you all doing this evening? That's a good way to start this off. Before
Doing
we
pretty
get into
good, man.
And the shenanigans. That's what I'm talking about.
And not complain.
Everybody's tired. Hey, everybody's tired. Work is hard.
Yeah,
reviewing movies is hard work. Who didn't tell you that before? But let's quickly jump into this review. For people who don't know what the creator is, I'll give you a quick synopsis. And the synopsis is: against the backdrop of a war between humans and robots with artificial intelligence, a former soldier finds the secret weapon, a robot in form of a young child. So, gentlemen, first I'm going to ask you your first opinions, your first thoughts on this film before we dive deep into it. And I'm going to start first with Jorge.
Yeah, no, I visually, I think this was probably one of the prettiest films I've seen in a while. In terms of scope, it's not as large as Dune, but you literally felt like this was a huge landscape. And the way they shot it, I thought was great. I will say my initial reaction outside the theater has changed quite a lot the more I've kind of sat and thought about this movie. But overall, I enjoyed it. Quick little synopsis there. I enjoyed it.
There you go. Mike, what's your thoughts?
I thought Oblivion was great. I really liked the visual effects of it. I liked Elysium too. I thought Elysium was very good too. And of course I can't forget Avatar, the first one. It was a great thing, you know. And I think the story is great, and you know, it's so good you can see it again and again and again with different skin, and you still get the same thing out of it. So yes. Wow. Oh wait, are we talking about creator? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the same movie. My bad.
Sam, what are your thoughts on the creator, sir? Your first initial thoughts before we break this film down.
He's muted.
Sam, we literally can't hear you.
You can hear me now, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
There you go.
Right. So my first initial thoughts are just kind of weird because I saw the first 3 scenes before it came out, and the first 3 scenes was just action. There was no score. It was just certain segmented moments. So I could already piece together where I thought the threads were going to go. I had a preconceived notion about where the story was going to actually land. And so when I watched the movie, I was like, man, I'm so glad that the score is there. I'm so glad that visually it's stunning. But what I was concerned about, you know, when we first started the movie, I was like, do I actually care about any of these characters? And you know, it does feel familiar. To Mike's point, there's a lot of different threads they're pulling from different movies, absolutely. But I think it was when I realized foundationally what was actually happening from the family dynamic of it that I started to kind of think, oh wow, this may be something more to this. But at the time, I kind of was like, let me just kind of shotgun, like, oh, okay, it looks visually dope. But you know, Rogue One was a far more superior film from my perception of what the directors made. But I didn't give myself time to actually process what I felt about the film as a whole. And so now I kind of have more of a concise understanding of kind of what I got. But yeah, that's where I'm at for now.
Okay, and mine is very simple here. The creator is visually stunning. Visually, it's amazing. The score is even great here. The issue with it is that this film's depth is as deep as the shallow end of a kiddie pool, where everything is so surface for this film, and they never attempt to go deeper than the surface. Instead, they give you the bargain basement sci-fi story here. And that is the issue with this film, is that because of the visual scope of it, you expect more. But then you have to bring yourself back to the director that we're dealing with here, which is Garth, who, I mean, Sam brought up Rogue One, but I'll go back to the first Godzilla because that's the movie that's most comparable to this, where visually it looks stunning, but the story is so lacking emotion and depth that it can take you completely out of this film. And that's where I am with this. But, gentlemen, I believe in starting with love before you start with hate. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you, starting with Sam, what is it about this film that you absolutely loved?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy thing to love is, you know, the level of scope of this. I mean, they take a concept of, you know, war, right? And I think that Gareth even introduced this, like he wanted to make a war epic. And I think that foundationally, like they use certain concepts of how AI has done certain stuff. And I think that we've seen this with so many different small series. Like I think the what was it? God, I'm spacing on it. Oh my gosh. What was the one? 2049. Help me out.
Blade Runner.
So Blade Runner had like a small sub series, like it was a small little series that kind of went on how it got to that point. And that reminded me so much of yeah, exactly. That reminded me so much of this. But what they did was they allowed the actual AI to be like people and something that is dependable. And also, and without spoiling too much, it may not be the AI's fault. It may be the human element, which most of the time human error is a thing. Like humans project. And so when it came to the point with the family, I think that I don't know about David's acting is one thing, but I do appreciate the young actresses. I'm not going to go there. We're not going to do this time. The young actress that's playing this AI weapon, there's a lot of sincerity and levels behind her, not necessarily with her performance, but the way that they position her. And it did remind me of the Will Smith movie. Oh my God, I'm spacing on
iRobot.
iRobot with Johnny.
Keep him the list. Keep that in the list.
Yeah, like it reminded me so much of that. But it's interesting because by the third act, it started to reach something different. It started to kind of connect that, no, this isn't just that. There is an actual family element to this. And they've all been kind of torn apart because of it. And I think I gravitated towards that. I actually really related to that. I actually liked it. It's just, it was almost like, it felt like it was $1 too short because I only got that for the last 25 minutes of the film. And if they would have done that a little bit sooner, it could have given a little bit more of a tangible story. But I think that's the other part of when I first finished, I was like, I'm just write that off. Like it happened. But the more I think about it, the more I appreciate it. But I'll let somebody else talk about it.
Jorge, what are your positive thoughts on the creator?
So I think all of us are going to say the visuals. I think for me, one part that, and I think this year I've been focusing a lot more, and I've noticed that I'm focusing a lot more, is the score of the movie. I really enjoyed it. And I think Hans Zimmer was the one who did this score. Yeah, I think that's probably why I enjoyed it. But I thought the score was phenomenal. in this, and just depiction of sound when you see it. Obviously we got to see this in an IMAX, so you get the full-blown effect of all the sound. So it's for me, other than the visuals, which like everyone's gonna say, this movie is very pretty. I think that the sound is up there. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed kind of like I feel, not to kind of talk like how Mike was saying with like Oblivion. Like Oblivion was one of those movies for me that you could literally listen to it without any of the, like the speech, just literally the soundtrack, and it's still a great movie. I wonder if this will somewhat, like whenever this comes out on DVD, I wonder if they'll have that option, because I know they had that option with Oblivion where you could literally just watch it with the score, which was awesome. But I think that would be for me like the biggest highlight, other than the visuals.
Mike, what are your thoughts on the positive, sir, on the creator?
Yeah, again, this is visually stunning. To me, like when I was younger, like sci-fi films, like I was a sucker for them. Like I would kind of just spend bad plot, just for great visuals and stuff like that, and like the science aspect of it, because I was going in engineering, and I love science and design and all that stuff like that. So like iRobot was one of my favorite films when I was young. So like when I'm seeing these things of like this type of dystopian future or possibility of future, I'm all in. That's like my genre. But the thing that we're trying to do with this terms of going to AI now, currently today, I think I like the first, at least like the first 15 minutes of the film in terms of bring up the concept of how we got here with AI. Again, I just wish it would have gotten a little bit more further, but what we've gotten with those first 15 minutes in terms of like that establishing the world, I'm all for it. Again, in terms about scanning people and again getting into more of like the evolution of AI, which what we're all talking about right now. What we're with strikes and all that stuff going. This is the thing we're currently invested into. So I was all in for it. And I thought they did a good job again establishing the groundwork for that. And again, I did like some of the performances again from John David Washington and also the young child there as well. They did have some good moments throughout the film too, establishing again this more of like parental figure, which we've seen this story like the samurai and the child story, like Mandalorian and other stuff like that before. But I'd still like what they were trying to do here. And again, the creative elements of the designing this world, I was all for it.
Okay, and I'll stick to something extremely simple here, because finding something positive at times can be a difficult thing. And that doesn't mean the movie's bad. It just means it may not be my taste. But Ken Wasabi, who I believe is one of the best actors in the business right now. And I believe even in a minimalist role as we get of him here in The Creator, his intensity is something to marvel at in this film. He brings so much to a role that could have been thrown away and anyone could have done. It's his intensity, it's his intent as an actor here that stands out more than anything else to me in this film. It feels like whenever he's on screen, he's running laps around any person else who's in a scene with him. It feels like he's the only one truly committed to it. And I absolutely love that, because when you get to see someone as talented as Ken is in film, you should treasure it, because this is not something of the norm. This is something that sticks out. This is something that as an audience, you have to marvel at. And again, it's a small role, but in this small role, he brings the emotion that no other person in this film brings. He brings in his passion in this role. And that is the positive thing for me here, is that he's captivating whenever you see him on screen. And it could be as simple as a line of him saying, "Brother," that's it. Like, you feel that. You felt that emotion in it. And that's what this film needed. Because again, we talk about the visuals, but at this point, everyone knows the visuals are going to be amazing. We could talk about the score. which is amazing. And that's odd because Hans Zimmer normally just goes to bust any eardrum in sight. Like that's normally what he does. So for him to do this type of score, maybe it's because he's not with Christopher Nolan and we got a score that you can listen to. Maybe that's it. But that's not the norm for Hans Zimmer. But again, it's a cheat code. Normally for sci-fi films, if you want a cheat code, you get Hans Zimmer. This is almost identical to his score for me that he did for Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
So while I can understand that it is great, I also understand it's not necessarily an original thing for me to see. But Ken is a person who will always stick out in a film, and he does it here in The Creator. Now, gentlemen, because we started with love, now we got to start with what are your biggest issues, if you have any, with The Creator. And I'm going to start first with the person I started with last. Mike, what are your biggest issues with The Creator?
I felt they got Chat GDP and say, "Hey, can you make a script about artificial intelligence in the war of humanity?" And the suggestions that listed down was the exact script or storyline of this film. This is again kiddie pool. This was as surface level and as textbook as you can be with sci-fi movie trope. We got the general from Avatar. We got the kid from, or we got at least the woman from Ex Machina is now a little Asian girl. We gotten the black man from iRobot, now John David Washington, used to be Will Smith. We have the AI cloning, i.e. Oblivion, which are now AIs, which we can use, in terms of technology and just copy people and have no duplicates, i.e. or Blade Runner 24.
It's too familiar to you, Mike.
Yes.
Okay.
It's very, very familiar. And thing about it is that I know Gareth Edwards. I love Rogue One. And again, I wanted something deeper because you had an opportunity to get deep in this conversation about AI. And I felt you haven't gotten deep enough, and to a point where it kind of was frustrating because I saw, again, it's like you give me this nice icing on the cake, and then when I eat the cake, I realize it's just foam. The icing might be real, but it's a foam cake.
So, Jorge, what are your...
I got so many questions from Mike. We're going to wait.
I'm about to say we'll wait to ask the questions, but first I'm going to ask Jorge, what were things in The Creator that you did not like?
Yeah, I think I can probably narrow it down to like three major flaws that kind of I felt in this movie. Was it felt like they cared more about the scope than they did the actual storyline. And I felt you kind of started seeing that in the third act, which is my second thing, where it felt very rushed. And this movie was a long movie, and you almost had time to develop these things. And it was almost like in the last 5 minutes, they had to check off every single like to-do list that they said earlier in the movie, which I didn't like that. And then the final one is kind of like what Mike was saying, is everything that I liked, I almost felt, well, I didn't, it was like, we've seen it before. The one that you guys haven't mentioned yet, which for me, it was funny because you guys bring up Oblivion for the cloning people. I thought of The Matrix, and with the police officer, how he was kind of like the same police officer, the
Agent Smith.
Yeah, but
wow, I didn't think of that.
I think the actor who played it is the Indian actor. I forgot his name, but I think the officer's name was Omi, I believe. But that reminded me so much of Agent Smith, and it was weird because it's whenever you see a part of the movie that you really enjoy, it almost takes you away from the movie because you're like, where have I seen that before? Or, oh, that's just like this movie. That's just like that movie. And I think those were the parts that really kind of bummed me out and took me out for a little bit with this movie. But those are my three, you know, like top, you know, critiques, if I can give them, of things that I did not like.
Yeah. And last but definitely not least, Supercell. What were your things about the creator you did not enjoy?
I think that the biggest thing for me is there were so many. I mean, well, I'm torn because I agree with you guys that this is very familiar territory, but familiar territory doesn't mean that it can't work. I think that the certain concepts that they could have done, like using characters like this, for instance, like this character could have been something very different. They could have explained and broke down why she believes what she's doing, why she perceives that her actions are justified. And
Yes.
she's an amazing actress, like one of the best, Oscar winning. This is Allison Janney. And so with somebody like her, like she has a couple great scenes, but by the end of the movie, they just kind of just throw her away. And I think that's everything in the movie. There's so many great concepts when they go and they show like a certain technology where a person, and this is not spoiling too much, but a person, you know, perishes, and they show kind of how they can be able to rewind to see what happened. That small little concept alone, from a technological standpoint, if you're a sci-fi nerd, this is what you want to see. You want to kind of get more of that. Taking the warped elements of certain things to kind of like, how did we get here? What was the cause and effect of families and other regions, other locations? Like how are they being policed and whatnot? Like they kind of did it so rushed. It leaves it lackadaisical. But the concepts, there's so many great concepts that I feel like I wish this was a trilogy, because honestly, if they would have made more time to kind of develop and progress how this goes, as opposed to make it into one movie. And I'm not saying that this is like The Last Airbender, where they try to fit a whole book in one movie. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the things that are great in this, they could have just taken their time and flushed them out. And I even equate that to one of the things I love, which is the family dynamic. If they would have drawn that out a little bit more, or even like progressed it to be like a series, I think this would have been something that nobody will ever forget. I think that this movie will always be in people's eyes visually amazing and amazing concepts that make you think and ponder, which is why even now I'm still starting to think about things that I remembered and I'm starting to like, but I want more of. And so you're kind of left like it is a husk, but I don't think it is. I think it's just not progressed. I think they intentionally leave things at the cutting room floor to make it irrelevant at a certain point. And to Jorge's point, the last 5 minutes are very much so rushed. They wrapped that up so quickly. I was like, it didn't even make sense. There's one thing that happened, and I was like, they built up to this moment, and it was like, what, really? And so I appreciate it from an artistic standpoint, but it just kind of ended, and it didn't have to. That's where I'm at.
So first, let me start off by saying, if you're going to do a Stephen Lang role, there's absolutely no reason not to cast him in it. Allison Janney is Stephen Lang in both Avatar films, which makes absolutely no sense that you did not cast him in this role. Second, Jason, John, David, Washington, whatever his name is, has no ability to emote emotion. And because he doesn't, this film suffers because his ability not to actually show his emotion on screen, it suffers tremendously. And then there's the child, who, if you're going to rip off AI with Haley Joel Osment, at least have someone who can show the emotion that Haley Joel Osment was able to show in AI. This movie borrows from every sci-fi film that people liked in the last 15 years, and it did it to make a film that, to me, is so disjointed that I don't see how anyone can sit and overly enjoy it. As Mike said, everything is reminiscent of another film. And because everything is reminiscent of another film, it takes you completely out of the creator. This is a film that feels like Avatar. It feels like Elysium. It feels like District 9. It feels like AI. It feels like Oblivion. It feels in a way like The Matrix. At one point in time, the little girl in the film feels like the golden child. It feels like everything humanly possible but itself. And because of that, you kind of wonder, did they think visuals were more important than actual storylines? And because of that, we get a film that, while it can be enjoyable to some people, it's bargain basement to other people. And that's the problem with The Creator, is that it feels like a film that I can watch and completely forget about and never care about again. And the visuals say that should not be the case, but the execution says that is the case, and it's too much miscasting in this film for it to be something that's going to stick out forever. But gentlemen, starting with Jorge, what are your final thoughts on The Creator?
No, final thoughts. I think once you see it and you remove the negatives from it, I think this movie brings a really cool aspect of AI that I feel iRobot didn't get right. I feel this movie gives you a really realistic, like, possibility of what could happen with AI, and what has happened before. With AI, like, all of us are in the IT business, so we kind of like, understand certain things. Like, I think it was either Microsoft or Google created an AI, and the AI started creating its own language, which at the end of the day, like, something like this could happen. Sorry, I'm looking at a chat right now, and no, but no, I think overall, like, if you look at this movie as a standalone, and try not to compare it with stuff you've already seen, as a standalone movie, the scope, the story, it's great. It does feel rushed, and I think, Sam, you brought up a really good point, where if this would have been a 2-part movie, I think this could have been something special, for the simple fact that there are certain parts that felt really rushed, that if you could have slowed it down a little bit, maybe it could have done a little bit different with this movie. Overall, though, if I had to give it, like, a quick score, are we doing scores today or no?
Yeah, we can do A to F.
A to F? Okay, I give this, like, a solid B, C plus B. And that's all I got.
Schedule, because I took the week.
Okay, that is that is good, Jorge. Mike, what are your final thoughts and grade? Since Jorge just stepped out there to give a grade, what are your grade on The Creator?
Wait, I got a question for Mike before he goes. Mike, so can you kind of narrow down, like, what is the negative outside? I mean, it seems like if it's in familiar territory, but can you kind of narrow down your perspective of why you wouldn't try to watch this again? Because I mean, conceptually, like, a movie that's good is one thing. A movie that's entertaining is another thing. What keeps you from being like, oh, okay, this isn't entertaining enough for my time, but this is also equally not good enough for something else? And it may be that you're more on the entertainment side, it's good, but then it's not good. So I'm just curious. I want to kind of leave it with that.
The best way I can explain this is that, with Transformer movies, how if you can clip like maybe 5 or 15 minutes of a Transformer movie, then you're like, oh man, this is a great movie. With this film, aside from things that I've seen before, and also things I've seen before that I've liked, what the issue I had is that, okay, you took some familiar beats and you could make something, great with it. But I think my real issue I had was with the plot. Again, there's certain decisions, not aside from what I see that's familiar, that certain characters do, like why we had to wait to this moment for you to tell this person the secret, and then it's like, which could have changed the whole course of this whole, first 2/3 of our first 2/3 of this movie. Again, some, yeah, that's basically what I will say. That's it. It's the plot, certain character decisions the characters make in this film that I think is frustrating, that I don't like, which I've seen in films before. But again, it's like, it's really the plot, not that, okay, I've seen AI before, I've seen AI is trying to destroy a system and everything, and war between humans. Like that's not, even though I've seen this familiar, that wasn't the main thing. It was the plot for me. And while away,
I can help you out here, Mike. I can help you out here because I think I know the issue, because the same issue I had. It's not that you can't focus strictly on that all of this stuff has been seen before. It's that all of this stuff has been seen before and done better. And that's the problem. You can't repeat a formula and then have it be worse than the formula I've seen before. Because when you do that, I notice the flaws even more. So when you have Allison Janney going around like Stephen Lang, but a great value version of Stephen Lang, it's a problem. When you show the way AI can control things, and I've seen it better in other films, and I know it's a stolen idea, it becomes a bigger problem. That's the issue with the creator.
Yeah.
It's not that you take concepts from other films. The entire plot of The Matrix is stolen from multiple sci-fi films. But what they managed to do with those ideas were great. When you give us subpar stolen ideas, we're gonna have a problem with it.
Thank you, Master.
Jedi son is learning.
And look, I'm proud of him because he clearly pointed out what the issue was. And as we were sitting in this screening, and me and Mike were right beside each other, and I kept on pointing out, and he kept on pointing out, like, oh, that's from Avatar. Oh, that's from Oblivion. Like, he was pointing out the films that he had seen these ideas from.
Yeah.
But the problem was none of them were executed as well as those prior films. And because of that, it sticks out too much.
Well, you can't make it copy it because it's plagiarism. It's like when you run it through ChatGPT and you have to run it 2 or 3 times so it doesn't catch it. That's what they did. They just washed it out a little bit.
Again, my first thing I said, it's a ChatGPT script.
Wait, hold on, Mike. What's your grade?
Think about it like Avatar. Before Mike says it's great, Jorge, think about it like Avatar. Avatar is Dances with Wolves.
Yep.
It's literally the exact same story.
Fern Gully.
But what they took was saying, well, Fern Gully is a stolen story of Dances with Wolves, also with Avatar. But what they did there was say, hey, we're going to use this story, but we're going to execute elements of it, or we're going to make you focus on different things.
Yeah.
With Avatar, you only focus on the visuals, because if you ever paid attention to that story, you're going to be like, I've seen this movie 1,000 times. Not only is this movie Dances with Wolves, it's literally Pocahontas. I've seen this movie over and over again. Yeah. But you choose not to focus on it because of what else they perfect. The creator just decided we can take our ideas, but we're not necessarily gonna.
You're not gonna evolve
elevate them.
Yeah.
That's the issue with it. But Mike, what is your grade for The Creator?
Yeah, I give it probably a B+ on visuals, but I'm gonna give it probably maybe a C+ on terms of script, the storyline, like storyline of the film. And that's mean, and I'm trying to say, like, is it unbearably unwatchable? No, I'm not saying it at all. I've seen worse movies this year. And I'm not trying to say the way I'm explaining this is where this is god awful. What I'm saying is that I think this is almost, it's copy in the words of AI. Okay, if you're gonna plagiarize, do it right. You can copy and paste, but make sure you can change some change some synonyms and stuff like that, connective sentences, and hopefully you can persuade the teacher that's grading it to say, okay, this is somewhat good, or whatever. I've seen this before, but all right, my well sentence structure, well paragraph. All right, I give you a higher score, but this I caught it. Can't see me, and this is no human error. This is accurate.
Sam, what are your final thoughts and grade on The Creator?
Okay, I'm gonna share a picture real quick and be quick about it. If anybody has seen the Animatrix, there's a storyline in the Animatrix that's basically talking about the concept of how AI was created and what it did before the bombs literally dropped. And we're talking about plagiarism here, right? And so I can never disagree with what Mike is saying or what Jorge was insinuating. this is a scene again from the Animatrix. One last scene, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Now, all these men that are here that are reviewing this have seen the creator. They're looking at this probably after I've seen this, and they got like in their heads, they're like, "What the heck?" Okay. And that's kind of how I feel about this. Like from an actual live action concept, I do think that they could have went and took that idea that the Animatrix introduced through the Matrix and elevated it to a different stride. Because one of the things that the Animatrix didn't hit was that concept of war. Like, why was it that self-preservation for the AI was needed and sustainable? And why would humans choose to back them? That was what I was trying to get from this film. And I think in certain levels with humanity and with the family that they did hit that, but it didn't. It's basically their foundation is quicksand, unfortunately. They don't have a clear foundation of where this could have went. And so I think the ideas are great. They were definitely plagiarized from other sources, but I think that they could have done something with them that could have been amazing. Now, will I watch this movie again? I personally would. Would I watch it for the visuals, or would I watch it for things that I didn't see the first time? I do think that there's so many different holes that they just did not fill, and they didn't progress it enough for me to care, to go in deep about the story. But I think it could have been. But I definitely would go back from a visual aesthetic and take anybody to go see it, from just the scope, the score. I mean, it is amazing. As far as a massive like war sci-fi epic, like this could have been something amazing. And for some people, it may be. So I'd rate it at a B. B to I want to kind of think of B plus, but again, like I'm leaving it right at a B. I do think that from a scope standpoint, it's one of the most visually immersive sci-fi films I've seen in a while. Even though we had like some weird stuff going on with our film initially, but we'll see.
It wasn't weird, because I've seen multiple critics say the exact same thing.
Really?
So that's actually the way the film is. Yes.
So is that more of like a depth to field thing?
It's giving Shark Boy and Lava Girl blue.
That was the way the film was.
Red
that
3D.
is an issue with the film.
They just ran out of money.
That's necessarily that.
They were hoping that by the time the end of the movie happened, you forgot about those first, 5 minutes.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm a B. I'll let Lucas.
And my thoughts is Gareth Edwards is equivalent to what Aretha Franklin said about Taylor Swift. Beautiful gowns. Beautiful. Every film he shoots looks great. He has yet to make a film that is actually story-wise good. Because I know people like Rogue One. You're lying to yourselves. That movie's not that good. What you like about Rogue One is that at the end, for 30 seconds, he gave you Darth Vader being the Darth Vader everybody has been waiting to see for 40 years. But you're not watching Rogue One and thinking that's a good movie. You're watching it like, I cannot see this and be perfectly fine. And that's the creator. That is his skill set. He is great. He can put together a film visually. He is literally sci-fi's equivalent of Zack Snyder. I can visually give you something amazing, but story-wise, I don't know how to put together a story to keep you engaged. And here with the creator, he decided it was more important to possibly take ideas from other sci-fi films. And to me, I'm not going to go as far as saying plagiarism, because to me, with sci-fi films, a lot of them move the exact same way. Sam showed you a clip from the Animatrix. I believe, personally, the entire story of the Matrix is stolen, including the Animatrix. None of that is original. You can see that in a multitude of sci-fi films. None of that is original. So I don't blame any director who borrows from sci-fi elements. That is not an issue. But when you do it, you better do it to the best of your ability and make it something that feels original. Here, it feels like when I saw the Lion King remake, and I said, oh, this is literally the same story, just not as good. That's what the creator feels like. It's the same story, just not as good. And and this is not hate. I'm going to say this with as much love as humanly possible. John David Washington cannot act. Stop putting him in roles where he needs to act. Put him in roles where his charisma can make up for his lack of ability in acting, because he's not there yet on screen. Now, I've seen him on Broadway, and I literally watched the play and thought he's the worst element of this play. It's not a talent of his right now, but it's because no one is forcing him to make this a skill set that he can do. So as I'm watching this film and I'm watching characters emote emotion, and he should be the character who should emote the most emotion, and nothing comes out, I'm just stuck and wondering, why would you put him in this situation? So I blame the point that you wanted a name for this role instead of an actor for this role. Like, it comes to the point where John David can actually draw a box office, and we have to acknowledge that. But just because he can draw it, don't mean he's the person who needs to be in this film. This film needed a lead who could make up for the flaws in this plot. And because you did not have that lead, it made everything else worse, because you notice the flaws too much, because you don't have someone who can make up for those issues. So while The Creator is not the worst movie in the world, far from it, I think this is something that people can watch and enjoy. The same way you enjoyed a regular Netflix series. The same way you people are going out this joint. No, Sam. The same way you people are going out this joint enjoying Suits. Like, I understand those elements of this film, but this is not a film that I think has lasting power to make people think this is one of the best sci-fi films ever. This is a film that gives you just enough plot points that you've seen before, just enough story to wrap it around a visually stunning film that it has replay value in it. But this is not something that in 5 to 10 years you're going to care about. The same way people thought when Blade Runner 2049 came out, it was the best thing since sliced bread, and yet no one talks about it, and we're less than 5 years removed from it. That's going to be The Creator. My grade for The Creator is a C minus. It's not bad. It's something you can watch, but it's something you will never remember, because there's nothing in here for you to remember. And the little kid from The Golden Child that you put in this film to make people think there was a robot didn't make it any better. The plot is so simple, in someone with little to no knowledge of film could have figured out how this movie was going to end 40 minutes into it. And that's the problem. Gentlemen, any final thoughts on Gareth Edwards' Creator?
I mean, I think Sam and Mike are losing it with your final thoughts here. No, I think something you brought up really does. The more I'm thinking about it, hearing you talk, really, the best. It's weird when you're at the end of the day, when like your supporting actor does a better job
It's
than
more,
the main actor,
yeah.
and can really, because it's true, every scene he was in, you were invested in his character. And I just hearing that, like, and hearing you talking about it, like that just kind of clicked for me, in the sense of, yeah, he basically got outdone by someone who was in the film for what, 20 minutes?
15 minutes?
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's an interesting one. But yeah, that's my final thoughts. I still enjoyed it though.
Yeah, and it's not a shot against John David if he's miscast in roles. That's the problem of a studio who miscast him in these roles. I don't think that's his issue. Just like he was not good in Malcolm and Marie, this is not for him.
Yeah.
But you got to understand, Tenet was not for him, as you saw Robert Pattinson run leaps and bounds around him in that film. This just isn't for him. Not at this point in his career. So I didn't think it was fair to him to put the weight of this film on his character. either you change what that character means or you hire a different actor for it. And because you didn't, you make it seem like this guy doesn't have talent. I swear to goodness, I believe in 10 to 15 years, he could be one of the best actors in Hollywood, depending on the way he chooses roles.
Yeah.
But I can name people who I would have, if Omar Sy was the lead in this film, you would have got a completely different depth of emotion. Doesn't mean you have to change the race. I can name a multitude of black actors who I think who could nail this role. But David Jason isn't one of them because he does not do, at this point in time, a good job of emotion. That's it. And this film is not an action film. This is a film driven by its emotion. Did anyone here, and I'll random question for all three of you all, did anyone here believe the emotion behind him and the kid in this movie?
I believe the kid, but I didn't believe him. And the weird
That's
thing
the
is
problem.
that in the very beginning of the movie, there was a scene, there was a love scene. And it was weird because the person that was his partner in that love scene, I fully was like, okay, I get it. I'm interested to see where this is about to go. And there's a scene with them that takes place in the water, and that should have crushed me emotionally.
Yes.
And it didn't. And I don't blame the partner. And that's the crazy thing. That's without spoiling anything. But yeah, I don't want to throw him under the bus or anything, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you could at this point. I think it's just a situation where I need them to cast him properly in films. I've seen him do an amazing job in movies. And I don't need it to be another black actor who you miscast him to the extent where his career goes down the drain. Because you're attempting to push him as, and again, no offense to anybody, stop trying to make John David your next great Negro. Stop it.
I'm gonna ask you a
Just
question.
give him a role that fits him. If Lakeith Stanfield played the lead in this film, you'd have felt every bit of emotion in that character.
100%.
Every bit of it.
Oh my god.
Because that's his goal. If Brian Tyree Henry would have played this role, you would have been broken by what he would have done with the emotion in this film.
Yeah.
It's just not John David's skill set right now. No issue with it. It's just not his skill set right now.
Yeah. Do you think if he wasn't in a situation, do you think Jonathan would have gotten casted for something like this during the time? I don't remember when this was shot.
Definitely. But yes, but Jonathan, it's a such thing as too much emotion. I think he would have taken it too far. You need someone who can balance it, who understands like this is still an action-esque sci-fi film, but you still need to have that emotional weight behind it. I think Lakeith is the perfect person. Like perfect person for this type of role.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't, and he hasn't been in like a action sci-fi yet.
Like with the cowboy.
Right. He knows his ability to pull emotion out of the slightest scenes is what this film needs. You need that because you need to believe that this character is doing all of this for the love of his life.
Yeah.
And at no point in time do I actually believe it in the creator that he's going this hard for the love of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allison Janney has a scene in this film, and this is not a spoiler, where her and David Jason's character they're having a discussion. And Allison Janney's character talks about her family. And you see as she's acting, a little tear drop out of her eye. And I said, oh my God, that scene is more emotional than anything he's ever been able to do in this entire film. That's a problem. And again, I don't believe it's on him because it is a such thing as you miscasting people in roles.
Yeah.
As you would say in any sport, as you would say in any other aspect of life, if you don't put a person in a situation to win, that's your fault, not theirs. You knew their skill set when you hired them. But you need his name because John David semi can open up a film right now. I need it not to be that this black actor is tarnished so bad because he can't take another film not opening well.
That's true.
He just can't. It's all honesty. He cannot take another film not opening well. If he gets another film not opening well, you know what? They're gonna put him on the back burner to everyone else. And we can't afford that in this industry when it comes to black actors, where you miscast them in roles. The same thing happened with John Boyega was the same thing. You miscast them just enough to push him to the back burner. You can't do that with John David, where you miscast him enough where you push him to the back burner. I'm really against that with any actors, any POC actors, and I'll say it, not an issue. Any one of them. Stop miscasting them to the point where you push them to the back because you say they can't open up a movie when you're not giving them the proper movie to open up. I think that's it. Anything else, gentlemen, before we close out this extra long review of The Creator?
I got nothing.
You go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been our super-sized Team JVS review of Gareth Edwards, The Creator. Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know your opinions of this film. Maybe you all liked it more than some of us did. Or maybe you all feel the exact same sentiment that we do feel. We'd love to hear from you all. We'd love for you all to check out. We are dropping reviews constant, whether it be from TIFF at this point, whether it be from Fantastic Fest. We're constantly dropping content for you all to check out. Also, we're going to give you a chance here. Mike, plug your channel, sir. Stop laughing. Plug your channel where people can also check out your other content. Get yourself together.
It's the movie. It got him caught up, y'all. The movie got him caught up. It's the emotion of the movie.
Well, hey, just check out Jedi Mike on YouTube. His channel will be placed in the description, so you go all check that out. We're also going to be soon seeing, hopefully, the relaunch of Jorge's channel also, that you can also check out for content. As Team JVS, not only do we support this outlet, we support a multitude of outlets. We're trying to bring y'all as much content as humanly possible on different channels so y'all understand just how hard we're working. That's it. Peace, people.
Later, y'all. Peace.